Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack your sources to extract those surprising facts and essential insights that help you cut through the noise. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that might sound a bit dry at first glance, but it's absolutely foundational to how every successful business operates: inventory management. Our listeners shared a fantastic, comprehensive guide on supply chain fundamentals from OPEX NZ, and it's truly packed with eye-opening perspective. Our mission for this deep dive is to move beyond just definitions, to understand what inventory truly represents far more than just stuff in a warehouse, and uncover the strategic decisions that make managing it a high-stakes, sophisticated game.
Mhm.
By the end, you'll see why seemingly simple acts of holding items can make or break a company's efficiency and finances. So, where do we begin?
That's a great question because while inventory might look like a simple pile of goods, it's actually a dynamic, critical asset. Managed well, it can fuel profitability and keep customers happy. But when it's poorly managed, it can surprisingly hide deep operational issues and bleed a company dry with hidden costs.
That's a powerful way to frame it. Let's start with the fundamental layers then. What is inventory, really? Our source defines it as stocks or items used to support production, support activities, and customer service. That sounds pretty broad.
It is. It covers everything from raw materials you're about to use, the work in progress on the factory floor, to finished goods ready to ship, and even the maintenance supplies,
Yeah.
the MRO items that keep everything running. So yeah, it's not just the final product.
Right. So not just the widgets themselves, but the oil for the widget machine too.
Exactly. And when we talk about inventory management, we're talking about the art and science of planning and controlling all those various stocks. It's a critical distinction. Inventory planning involves figuring out the ideal levels, how much to order, and how much cushion or safety stock you need.
Okay, the strategy part.
Right. And inventory control, on the other hand, is all the day-to-day work, the actual techniques of maintaining those desired levels, the execute.
Got it. Strategy and execution. And every business has three big goals with inventory management, apparently: deliver excellent customer service, run operations efficiently, and here's the one that often raises eyebrows: minimize inventory investment. It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? To minimize something that helps you serve customers. What's behind it?
You've hit on a crucial point. It does seem counterintuitive until you realize the significant costs and, maybe more importantly, the hidden problems inventory can mask. To understand why minimizing it is so important, we need to look at the different types of inventory, beyond just raw materials or finished goods. Think of inventory not just as one big pile, but as different buckets, each serving a distinct purpose in the supply chain.
Okay, different kinds of stuff.
Exactly. For instance, we have pipeline inventory. This is literally inventory that's in transit, moving through the distribution system. It's on a truck, a ship, a plane, somewhere between point A and point B.
Inventory on the move.
Precisely. Then there's safety stock, which is your emergency buffer. It's specifically held to guard against unexpected surges in demand or maybe delays in supply.
Like, keeping extra flour at home just in case the store is out.
That's a perfect analogy. Exactly. That's safety stock in your pantry.
And what about building up stock for something you know is coming, like Christmas or a big sale?
That's anticipation inventory. It's stock you build up because you anticipate a trend, a seasonal rush, a planned promotion, even a factory shutdown for maintenance. You know the demand shift is coming, so you prepare for it.
Makes sense.
Another key one is lot size or cycle stock. This is the amount you need to cover your normal demand between replenishments. It's always dynamic, kind of ebbing and flowing as you sell and reorder.
So the regular stock you cycle through.
Right. And then there's a more specialized one. Decoupling inventory. Think of it like a shock absorber maybe between two different stages of production or the supply chain. If one machine slows down for a minute, the next one doesn't immediately grind to a halt because there's a small buffer of parts there. It creates some independence.
Okay, like a little buffer zone.
Exactly. And finally, hedge inventory is purely speculative. It's stock you hold to protect against a future event that might happen, but maybe won't. Like buying extra raw materials because you think a strike might disrupt supply later, or maybe prices will spike. It's a hedge against risk.
Okay, so that covers the why you might hold inventory. But here's where it gets really interesting and frankly a bit counterintuitive for me. Our source highlights that inventory, despite all these benefits, can actually hide significant problems within a business. It's like a company constantly buying extra paint to cover up cracks in the wall instead of fixing the underlying structural issues. Is that fair?
That's a perfect analogy. Many businesses, sometimes without even realizing it, use excess inventory as a bandage. It's easier in the short term, right? For example, if your production line constantly breaks down, maybe you just build up extra work in process inventory to keep the next station busy. Seems logical.
But it hides the breakdown problem.
Exactly. Or if your suppliers are unreliable, you might just hoard raw materials. So that seemingly healthy warehouse full of goods could actually be concealing deeper issues. The source lists things like poor design, lengthy setup or changeover times, inefficient factory layouts, frequent machine breakdowns, high defect rates, or even unreliable suppliers.
Wow.
Yeah, realizing this often sparks a huge aha moment for business leaders. The inventory isn't the asset they thought, it's masking liabilities.
And those hidden problems directly translate into a surprisingly complex web of costs associated with inventory, far beyond just the sticker price of the item itself.
Absolutely. Beyond the basic item cost or unit cost, which is what you pay for the item itself, plus maybe direct costs to get into your facility, you have substantial holding costs. These are the costs of having the inventory. Think about the capital tied up, the cost of storage warehouse space, utilities, insurance, security,
Okay.
and also the risk costs, things like spoilage, damage, obsolescence if it goes out of date, even theft. This can typically be a staggering 15–25% of the item's value annually.
Hold on, 15 to 25% per year just to hold it. That's huge. That's a massive hidden expense.
It truly is, and it's often underestimated. Then there's the ordering cost, which is a fixed amount every time you place an order, regardless of the quantity. Think admin costs, processing fees.
Okay, the cost to place the order itself.
Right. And critically, if you don't have enough stock, you face shortage costs.
Right.
This isn't just the profit from lost sales, though that's part of it. It's also the cost of handling back orders, maybe expedited shipping fees to catch up, and perhaps most damaging in long run, the loss of customer goodwill. People might just go elsewhere next time.
Yeah. That customer trust is hard to get back, so it's not just what you pay for the item, but what it costs to have it and what it costs if you don't have it when needed. Our source also introduces broader cost terms like acquisition cost. That's unit cost plus ordering and handling, right?
Correct. And landed costs, which adds in all the logistics like warehousing, transportation, handling fees to get it to its final destination.
But the big one that ties it all together is total cost of ownership, or TCO.
Yes, TCO is the big picture. It's the sum of all costs associated with every single activity in the supply chain, from sourcing raw materials right through to delivering the finished product, and maybe even handling returns or disposal. What's crucial to understand here, and the source emphasizes this, is that the acquisition cost is often a small portion of the total cost of ownership.
Wow, so chasing the lowest purchase price?
Can often be the most expensive decision in the long run
Exactly.
because it ignores all those other costs, holding, shortage, logistics, quality issues, everything. TCO fundamentally shifts how businesses should think about procurement.
That puts a whole new spin on bargain hunting in business.
Okay.
So planning is key. And speaking of planning, how do businesses decide how much to order, especially when demand for different things can be so, well, different?
Yeah, that's where distinguishing between independent versus dependent demand becomes really vital for planning. Independent demand items are things you sell directly to an outside customer, like a finished bicycle. Its demand is driven by the market. Dependent demand items are components used to make that bicycle. The wheels, the handlebars, the frame.
Yeah.
You only need wheels if you're building a bicycle, right?
Right.
So the demand for wheels depend on the demand for bicycles. This distinction totally changes how you forecast and plan your orders for those different types of items.
Okay, that makes sense. So once you know what kind of demand you're dealing with, how do businesses systematically decide how much to order? What are the main order quantity strategies?
There are 4 common approaches mentioned. The simplest is probably lot for lot. You literally order exactly what you need for the very next period, no more, no less. Very lean, but maybe lots of orders.
Okay, just enough for now.
Then you have a fixed order quantity system. Here, you always order the same predetermined amount, say 100 units, every single time you place an order.
So it's always the same batch size hitting your inventory.
Exactly. The min-max system's a bit more dynamic. You set a minimum stock level. When your inventory drops below that minimum, you order just enough to bring it back up to a predetermined maximum level.
So it tops it back up.
Right? Fills it back to the max line. And finally, you can order N periods worth of supply. This means you look ahead and order enough to satisfy demand for, say, the next 4 weeks, or N periods. It's also known as a fixed interval order system.
Okay, different ways to slice it. And then we come to the economic order quantity, or EOQ. This one sounds important, often called the Q system. It sounds like the optimal, maybe gold standard method.
Certainly aims to be, yes. EOQ is an optimizing method, mostly used for items with fairly stable, independent demand. It calculates the specific order quantity that minimizes your total annual inventory costs, specifically the sum of your annual ordering costs and your annual holding costs.
Ah, so it's a trade-off.
Exactly. Think of it as finding the perfect balance point. If you place fewer, larger orders, you save on ordering costs, but your average inventory level goes up, increasing holding costs. If you place more frequent, smaller orders, your holding costs go down, but your ordering costs shoot up because you're placing orders all the time. EOQ finds that mathematical sweet spot.
So what's fascinating here, and maybe a catch, is that EOQ operates under some very specific kind of ideal assumptions, right? Almost like a perfect lab experiment.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. The math for EOQ works beautifully in an ideal world. It assumes demand is known and constant, lead time is known and constant.
Which means no safety stock needed, in theory.
In pure EOQ theory, yes, no safety stock required. It also assumes no quantity discounts are available, ordering costs are fixed and constant, all demand is satisfied so no shortages are allowed, and your entire order quantity arrives in one single shipment.
Right. It's like designing a bridge assuming no wind or earthquakes, as you said. Useful baseline, but reality is messy.
Exactly, which is why we need to understand its core assumptions before we just plug numbers in and use it blindly in the real, often unpredictable world.
Okay. Because the real world rarely fits those neat assumptions. What happens if, say, quantity discounts are available? Suppliers often offer those.
Good question. That's where the quantity discount model comes in. It's essentially a modification of the basic EOQ process. It accounts for scenarios where the unit price changes based on how much you order, buy more, get a lower price per unit.
Makes sense.
The procedure basically involves calculating the EOQ at the lowest possible price first. Then you check if ordering that quantity actually qualifies you for that lowest price. If it does, great. If not, you might need to calculate the total cost at the EOQ quantity for the price break you do qualify for, and also calculate the total cost at the minimum quantity required to get the next lower price break. Then you compare the total costs.
So it's about finding the quantity that gives the lowest total cost, considering both the EOQ trade-off and the price breaks.
Precisely. It's about not just finding the theoretically ideal quantity based on holding and ordering costs, but the actual best quantity, considering the price advantages you can get.
Okay, so if EOQ works best in an ideal certain world, what happens when demand isn't certain? Which, let's face it, is most of the time for most businesses. This is where safety stock truly earns its keep. Right.
It's exactly right. When you factor in uncertainty, unpredictable demand, variable lead times, you absolutely need that buffer, that safety stock. This leads us to the concept of order cycle service level. It sounds technical, but it's simply the probability that the demand during the lead time, that crucial period while you're waiting for your order to arrive, won't exceed the inventory you have on hand.
So it's like, how confident do you want to be that you won't run out while waiting for the truck?
Perfect way to put it. And the risk of a stock out is just the flip side. It's 1 minus your desired service level. If you want a 95% service level, you accept a 5% risk of stocking out during that lead time.
And logically, more safety stock means?
More safety stock means a greater service level, higher confidence, and therefore a smaller risk of stock out. But of course, it also means higher holding costs, another trade-off.
Always a trade-off. And to manage that uncertainty, you need a trigger, right? A reorder point, which tells you when it's time to place that next order.
Correct. The reorder point is your signal. In that ideal EOQ world without safety stock, your reorder point, R, is simply your average daily demand, D, multiplied by your lead time in days. So R equals DL.
Okay, demand times lead time.
Right. If you sell 20 units a day on average, and it takes 10 days for your order to arrive, you reorder when you have 10 equals 200 units left. That should just cover you until the new order arrives, assuming everything is perfectly constant.
But it really is.
Exactly. So with safety stock needed for uncertainty, the reorder point becomes R equals DL plus SS, your calculated safety stock. You place the order earlier when you have more stock on hand to provide that buffer against variability.
Our source actually gives a clear example, which helps make this less abstract. It says, imagine daily demand averages 20 units. Lead time is 10 days. But there's variability. The standard deviation of demand during that lead time is 50 units. That means demand in those 10 days could swing quite a bit around the average of 200.
Right. That standard deviation quantifies the uncertainty.
And if you decide you want a 90% service level, you want to be 90% sure you won't stock out during lead time.
Then you need to calculate the safety stock. This typically involves using that standard deviation and a statistical Z's value that corresponds to your desired service level. For 90%, the z-value is commonly 1.28.
Okay, so the calculation uses that z-value, and in the example, the safety stock, SS, comes out to 64 units.
Right. So SSSZ, standard deviation to lead time demand, 1.2850 equals 64 units.
Which means your reorder point isn't 200 anymore. It's R equals DL plus SS equals 2010 plus 64 equals 264 units. You order sooner when you hit 264 units to account for that potential fluctuation.
Exactly. That z's value isn't magic. It's just a statistical way to quantify how much buffer you need for a given level of confidence or service level. Higher z means more confidence, more safety stock.
It really makes you think about your own life, doesn't it? I mean, have you ever thought of having safety stocks for things at home, like maybe an extra bag of coffee or a spare tire in the car, just in case?
Absolutely. It's the same fundamental principle. It's that intuitive feeling of preparedness, just quantified and applied systematically in a business context. We all manage mini inventories.
That's a good way to put it. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. How do businesses get smart about controlling all this inventory once they have it, particularly with something called ABC analysis? This sounds like a really crucial categorization method.
It is, absolutely. And it's directly based on the famous Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, named after Vilfredo Pareto.
Right, 80% of the effect comes from 20% of the cause, something like that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In inventory terms, it usually means something like 80% of your annual consumption value or expenditure comes from only about 20% of your inventory items. ABC analysis is a method to apply this principle. It helps businesses focus their limited time and resources on the critical few items, the A items, rather than getting bogged down managing the trivial many, the C items.
So it's all about smart prioritization. How does that breakdown actually work? What are A, B, and C items?
Precisely. Prioritization is key. So A items are your superstars, your most valuable items in terms of annual consumption value. And that value is typically calculated by multiplying the annual demand for an item by its cost per unit.
Okay, demand times cost.
Right. A items might only be 10–20% of your total number of different inventory items, but they typically account for a massive 70–80% of your total annual inventory expenditure.
Wow, big impact from just a few items.
Huge impact. So these require really close, tight, maybe even day-to-day control. Think of them as your top-selling high-value products or critical expensive components.
Okay, so that's A. What about B and C?
B items are your middle ground. They're intermediate in value. They might account for, say, 15–25% of your annual consumption value and maybe make up around 30% of your total inventory items. They need regular review, but perhaps not the constant scrutiny A items get.
And
C items are the rest. These are often the vast majority of your different items, maybe 50% or even more of your total stock keeping units, CUs. But they represent the lowest consumption value, perhaps only 5% or so of your annual spend. Think nuts and bolts, cheap office supplies, low-volume items. They require only infrequent review. You don't need to, or want to, babysit them individually.
Okay, that categorization makes intuitive sense. So how do those different categories translate into different inventory management policies for each class? You wouldn't manage bolts the same way you manage engines, right?
Absolutely not. For A items, you implement really tight inventory control. You might store them in more secured areas. You definitely want better, more accurate sales forecasts for them. And you'll likely reorder them very frequently, maybe weekly or even daily, for some to keep investment low but ensure availability. Avoiding stockouts on A items is usually a top priority because they have the biggest impact on your revenue and potentially customer satisfaction.
Makes sense. High stakes for A items.
Definitely. D items have an intermediate status. An important aspect of managing them is actually monitoring their potential evolution. Are they trending towards becoming A items or maybe fading towards C items? Their policies are moderate.
And the C items, the trivial many.
For C items, my policy is generally much looser. Reordering is made much less frequently, often in larger quantities when you do order, just to minimize the ordering costs. A common policy for some very low-value C items might even be to only carry 1 or 2 units on hand and only reorder when an actual purchase is made. It might even be acceptable to have occasional stockouts on C items because their low demand and low value mean the cost of holding excessive inventory often outweighs the risk of occasionally running out for a short time.
So you actually plan for potential stockouts on C items sometimes.
In some cases, yes, if the cost of ensuring 100% availability outweighs the consequence of a rare stockout for that specific low-value item. It's about managing risk intelligently.
And this ABC analysis isn't just theoretical scribbling, it has real-world procurement and warehouse applications, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It directly impacts operations. For example, when reviewing stocking levels, A items should have very tight minimum and maximum levels because they tie up so much capital, you manage them much more aggressively. And interestingly, for periodic obsolescence review, looking for old, dead stock, the bottom of the C category is often the best place to start digging. That's where stuff tends to linger unnoticed.
That's smart. What about counting?
It guides cycle, counting that process of regularly counting specific items to ensure your inventory records are accurate. You don't count everything all at once. Higher priority A items are cycle counted much more frequently, maybe quarterly or even monthly. B items perhaps every 6 months, and low-value C items maybe only annually. It focuses your counting effort where it matters most for financial accuracy.
Right, count the expensive stuff more often.
Exactly. It also helps identify items for potential consignment or vendor stocking arrangements, where the supplier owns the inventory until you actually use it.
Ah, so it's not on your books.
Right. A items, because of their high investment impact and carrying costs, are often the best candidates for these kinds of alternative stocking arrangements that reduce your own financial liability.
And it even impacts performance goals like turnover.
Yes, definitely. You'd expect and aim for greater turnover ratios on your A items compared to B or C items.
Yeah.
You want that high-value stuff moving quickly.
Okay, all these smart strategies, EOQ, ABC analysis, they all really hinge on something incredibly basic but absolutely critical: inventory record accuracy. Why is just knowing exactly what you have so vital?
Oh, it's foundational.
Yeah.
Because if your records are off, everything else falls apart. All your planning, forecasting, ordering, it's all based on garbage data if the records are wrong. The SARS lists the consequences pretty starkly. Inaccurate inventory records lead to lost sales. You think you have it, but you don't. Disrupted operations. Production stops waiting for a part you thought was there. Poor customer service, lower productivity, people wasting time searching, massive planning errors, and constant expediting.
Yeah.
You're always rushing around putting out fires caused by bad data.
Sounds like utter chaos. A nightmare. So how do businesses actually check those records to keep them accurate?
There are two main methods mentioned. Periodic counting is the sort of old-school approach. A complete physical inventory count of everything at fixed intervals, maybe once or twice a year. Think shutting down the warehouse for a weekend to count every single box.
The big annual stock take.
Right. It could be disruptive. The more modern and generally preferred method is cycle counting. This involves daily counting of a pre-specified number of items, often tied into that ABC analysis we just talked about.
Counting A's more often than C's?
Exactly. The huge advantages of cycle counting are timely detection and correction of inaccuracies. You find errors much faster. It helps eliminate lost production time from unexpected stockouts because your records are more reliable. And it's a structured approach, often using dedicated, trained employees who get good at it rather than pulling everyone off their jobs once a year.
Much more proactive, less disruptive. Makes sense. And when it comes to the systems for tracking this, our source talks about two different inventory systems: the periodic inventory system versus the perpetual inventory system. How do they differ?
Right. A periodic system typically relies on that physical count to determine the inventory levels and calculate the cost of goods sold, COGS, for financial statements. It's less real-time. You only know your true inventory after the count. COGS is often calculated as opening inventory plus purchases closing inventory,
Okay, based on the counts.
whereas a perpetual system uses continuous records. Every time an item comes in through receiving or goes out through shipping or production use, the inventory record for that item is immediately updated, usually electronically.
So it's always tracking.
Yes, it gives you a real-time ongoing picture of your inventory levels, item by item. Most modern businesses use perpetual systems, often integrated with barcode scanners, RFID, and sophisticated inventory management software. Your closing inventory value is essentially opening inventory plus purchases cost of goods sold derived from transaction records.
Okay, so perpetual seems way more useful for day-to-day management. Now, beyond just tracking the quantity, companies also need inventory valuation methods. This is about how they assign a monetary value to their inventory for financial reporting, right? This always felt a bit, well, like accounting magic to me.
It can seem that way, but it's essentially about making consistent assumptions about which costs you assign to the goods you've sold versus the goods you still have sitting on the shelf, especially when prices change over time. The three common methods mentioned are first in, first out, FIFO, last in, first out, LAVO, and the weighted average cost price method.
Okay, give us the quick rundown. FIFO.
FIFO assumes that the goods you receive first, the oldest stock, are the first ones you sell or use. So the cost assigned to cost of goods sold is the cost of those oldest items. Consequently, your ending inventory, the stuff still on the shelf, is valued at the prices of the latest items purchased. This method tends to result in an ending inventory value on the balance sheet that's closer to current market prices. Think of it like a grocery store selling the oldest milk first in, first out.
Okay, logical. What about LIFO, last in, first out?
LIFO is the opposite assumption. It assumes the goods you received last, the newest stock, are the first ones you sell or use for cost assignment. So your cost of goods sold reflects the cost of the most recently purchased items. This means your ending inventory is valued at the prices paid for the earliest lots purchased, which can result in inventory being costed at potentially much older, lower, or higher prices on the balance sheet. It's less common internationally due to accounting standards like IFRS, but still used in the US sometimes.
Okay, assumes newest stuff sells first. And the third one, weighted average.
The weighted average cost method smooths things out. It avoids assuming a specific flow like FIFO or LIFO. Instead, it calculates a weighted average cost for all identical items in inventory. You basically take the total cost of all units available for sale, beginning inventory plus purchases, and divide it by the total number of units available. Every time you sell an item, you assign that average cost to it. This method kind of evens out the effect of widely varying purchase prices over time.
Right, so different assumptions lead to different values for inventory and cost of goods sold.
Exactly. And while modern computer systems handle the complex calculations in the real world, understanding these fundamental differences is really crucial for interpreting financial statements. Our source points out a key impact. When costs are generally rising, FIFO will result in a lower cost of goods sold because you're expensing older, cheaper goods, and therefore a higher gross profit and a higher ending inventory valuation compared to LIFO.
And when costs are falling?
The opposite happens. When costs are falling, LIFO would generally result in a higher gross profit and inventory valuation. Weighted average cost usually falls somewhere in between FIFO and LIFO, often closer to FIFO.
And a really key takeaway seems to be that consistency matters, right? You can't just switch methods whenever you feel like it.
That's absolutely critical. Accounting principles generally require companies to choose an inventory valuation method and stick with it consistently from year to year. You can change, but it requires justification and disclosure. It's not just an arbitrary accounting detail, it can significantly impact reported profitability and even the taxes a company pays.
Definitely more than just accounting magic then. Okay, finally, let's briefly glimpse into another powerful inventory control approach mentioned, Kanban systems, which I often hear associated with lean manufacturing and Toyota.
Yes, Kanban is a fantastic example of a pull system for managing workflow and inventory, originating from the Toyota production system. Instead of forecasting demand and pushing products through a system based on that forecast.
Which can lead to overstocking.
Exactly. Kanban works on a pull basis. Nothing is produced or moved until the next step in the process signals a need, often using a visual signal, which is what Kanban originally meant, a signboard or card. It's all about creating flow and responding immediately to actual consumption. You might see different types, like a simple one-card Kanban for controlling production within a single workstation, or a two-card Kanban system managing flow between two different processes. One card signals production, one signals movement.
So it's visual signals driving action.
Right. There are also things like shelf-space Kanban, where an empty space on a shelf is the signal, or container-based Kanban, like the classic two-bin system. You have two bins of a part. When the first bin is empty, that's the signal to reorder, and you start using the second bin. Simple, visual, effective.
So it's not just a physical card necessarily, it's more a philosophy of pull and visual control.
Exactly. The core rules emphasize this. The signal, the card, the empty bin, is attached to the container or location. It's used to authorize withdrawal or production parts. Only the exact number of parts specified should be made or moved. The producer's rate must match the user's rate, and crucially, no defective parts are passed along. It ruthlessly eliminates waste, forces you to reduce inventory buffers, and makes problems like bottlenecks or quality issues immediately visible because there's no excess inventory to hide them. It forces you to fix the underlying issues.
Instead of just covering them up with more stock.
Precisely.
Wow. So what does this all mean? We've taken a truly comprehensive journey, haven't we? Through the world of inventory management. Moving from its basic definitions to uncovering its often hidden costs, exploring strategies for smart ordering like EOQ, dealing with uncertainty using safety stock, and leveraging prioritization tools like ABC analysis and these lean systems like Kanban. It's a lot more complex than just stuff.
It really is. And I think the core takeaway is that inventory management isn't just some sideline accounting or logistical function. It's a profound strategic lever. It directly impacts everything from customer service levels and operational efficiency right down to a company's fundamental financial health and profitability. The methods we discussed today, they aren't just jargon. They are sophisticated tools. Tools that allow businesses to navigate the inherent complexities of supply and demand, to minimize waste, and ultimately to achieve true operational excellence. It's about turning mere stuff into a truly powerful, well-managed asset.
That's a great summary. And it leaves us with a final thought for you, our listener. Considering all we've discussed today about the hidden costs, the trade-offs, the strategic nuances of managing inventory in businesses, how might understanding these detailed principles fundamentally shift how you approach managing resources and avoiding waste in your own life? Whether it's your pantry, your personal finances, your time, or even your daily products at work or home, where can you apply the lessons of efficient inventory management? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.